It's May 26, 2023, just after 3 in the morning, and a taxi driver pulls over to pick up a young girl. She looks like maybe she's a teenager. Other than her young age and the late hour, it seems like a normal job at first. But slowly, the driver starts noticing odd details here and there. First, the girl is struggling with a very heavy suitcase, but she's refusing his help with getting it into the car. Second, she doesn't ask for a ride to the airport or maybe the bus station, where you might expect someone with a suitcase to go in the middle of the night. She asks for a ride to the park, to the forest down by Nakdong River at 3 in the morning. The taxi driver agrees, but he's getting very suspicious. Why is she going to a park this late at night? What's in the heavy suitcase? He drops her off at the park and she asks him to wait. This is when his suspicions are confirmed, because after waiting about 20 minutes, she comes back, emerges from the trees, and that heavy suitcase, the one she could barely maneuver by herself, she's swinging it around like it's extremely light all of a sudden. This odd behavior has the driver's instinct screaming. So he decides to call the police. They show up and they start searching around Nakdong River. This search leads to a discovery that would startle even the most seasoned detectives. What they find down by the river is scattered body parts of a dismembered young woman. So they go looking for this passenger that the taxi driver reported, and only a few hours later, around 6 a.m., they locate the not teenager, by the way, the 23-year-old woman named Jung Yoo-Jung, and they arrest her. She still has the suitcase, and in the suitcase they find an ID card, clothes, and bloodstain. They follow the address on the ID card and they find an apartment, and in the apartment they find more body parts. So we've got a victim. How did we get to a dismembered body being dumped by the river? A young girl who claims to not know what's going on. It all started just 1 week before. The victim, we'll name her Anna, received a notification on her phone. But it wasn't just any ordinary notification. It wasn't a text message or like a social media post. It was someone reaching out to her for English tutoring. See, Anna, she was a very hardworking university student, very intelligent, and in her free time, she offered tutoring. Now, tutoring is very common in Korea because of how strict Korean parents can be about their kids' education. It's not uncommon for a parent to get their children tutoring in multiple subjects because they're very interested in supporting their studies and making sure that they're doing their best. So someone reaching out for tutoring, on its face, not unusual, but there was something unusual about this particular message. Yoo-Jung, just your average young adult, right? She's scrolling through her phone. She's looking at tutoring apps. Maybe she wants to just boost her English skills, work on a little self-improvement. It can't hurt. That would be an easy assumption, but that's not exactly what happened. So Yoo-Jung hops onto this tutoring app and she's looking for English tutors, but she's not looking to learn, okay? She's hunting. This app, which should have been a gateway to knowledge and, like I said, self-improvement, it turns into a personal catalog of potential victims for her. Imagine a platform designed to connect minds to better yourself by way of knowledge. And then imagine that platform being used not for knowledge, but for someone's plot to commit murder. You see, Anna, she doesn't tutor adults, she tutors students, she tutors children. And so Yoo-Jung, pretending to be a desperate parent, posts on this board, on this app, looking for an English tutor for her child. Enter the unsuspecting tutor who's about to get a lesson in Trust No One 101. And at first, she declined. This parent, she's kind of far away. It's not convenient for either of them. It doesn't seem like it would be a good fit. Yoo-Jung's persistent. She's offering to send her kid to Anna to set up a trial tutoring session. And if it doesn't work out, they can just go their separate ways, right? No harm, no foul. Anna, unfortunately, takes the bait. For her, our bright-eyed tutor, it's just another day. She'd been reluctant at first, but maybe this is her chance to make a difference. Maybe if Anna does a good job, she can help turn a kid's life around. But this isn't your average tutoring gig. This is the beginning of a true crime story that she did not sign up for. It's May 26th, dinner time. Anna is getting ready for the lesson, hoping that she can provide a service to this person in need, and the doorbell rings. She goes to the door, and there she is, face to face with her new student wait, no, it's actually our villain in disguise. See, Yoo-Jung had gotten a school uniform from an online secondhand shop, and she's a small person. So she shows up dressed in this school uniform, and for a moment, it looks like maybe she's a student. She shows up at Anna's place not with homework, but with a hidden weapon. It's like she's cosplaying innocent student, but the plot is twisted. The chilling part, or at least more chilling to me than the whole bait and switch so far, is that once she's inside, she takes a minute and confirms that Anna lives alone. She can move on with her plan. Yoo-Jung transforms from faux student to walking nightmare. She unleashes a horror onto this woman by revealing a concealed knife and stabbing the tutor over and over and over again. She stabs her in the chest and in the neck area, almost as if she'd researched the most effective ways to kill with a knife and aimed for those places specifically. In the end, Anna received 110 stab wounds, 2 of which punctured a large vein in the neck and her lung, which ultimately were deemed the cause of her death. Now, immediately after the crime, Yoo-Jung's behavior was bizarre. An argument can be made that Yoo-Jung's behavior was bizarre her entire life leading up to this, but we'll get to that. After the murder, immediately after the murder, she's done, right? Time to flee the scene. Not the right time to call it a day, according to Jung Yoo-Jung. Instead, it's the perfect time for a shopping trip. Now, this isn't like your average trip to the grocery store. She's not picking up stuff for dinner. She goes walking down the aisles, picking up plastic bags, bleach, and knives. Knives that are strong enough to cut through bone. Yep, just casually walking through the grocery store, planning her dismemberment DIY that nobody asked for, and she's in her own little bubble, completely oblivious to how it looks on the outside. And it does look like something from the outside, because she's caught on CCTV footage. She's caught leaving Anna's apartment to go home. She's caught going to the supermarket. She's caught leaving the supermarket to go back to Anna's. So Yoo-Jung, she heads back to Anna's apartment. Suitcase in tow, that's what she stopped at home for. And she gets to work, and it's gruesome, it's horrific, and when she's done, she stuffs as many body parts as she can into her suitcase and heads out as if, you know, she's just going on vacation, not leaving a crime scene. Like I said, CCTV footage catches her to and from, and she looks like she's just walking on her merry way. There's a bounce in her step. She's strutting along the sidewalk like she doesn't have a care in the world. It's honestly pretty surreal watching this footage, because it's like you're watching a movie where you're the only one that knows what's going on and everybody in the movie is oblivious, and you're just yelling at your screen like, why can't you see what I see? So Yoo-Jung gets some of the body parts packed up into the suitcase, calls a cab, and heads down to the Nakdong River. That's when she meets our taxi driver, and he's super suspicious about this whole situation. Not just the late hour, but whatever's going on with this suitcase. He's like, something's weird. And we know now what was going on with the suitcase. On the way there, it had body parts in it. She dumped them at the river. On the way back, obviously lighter again, nothing in there. Nothing in there except the evidence that she didn't ditch. The phone, the ID card, the clothes. She doesn't even get rid of the suitcase. Nope, recycles it, packs it back up, and takes it with her. Now, I know luggage is expensive, okay? But this is ridiculous. Since she made sure to keep the phone, the wallet, the ID card, and all this stuff with herself and not dump it with the body, it was suspected that she was intending to get away with murder. But in a move that screams, I'm trying to get caught, she left enough clues to lead detectives right to her. They find her, slap cuffs on her, and Yoo-Jung starts complaining about bleeding and abdominal pain. She insists that she's having some serious health issues until they finally take her to the hospital. Of course, she gets there, nothing wrong with her, clean bill of health, and they send her on her merry way. If you know anything about privacy laws in Korea, you might be wondering why we even know her name. And it's a good question, because we don't know the victim's name. The victim's name was kept confidential throughout this whole thing, but they decided to release Yoo-Jung's name so that the public could be aware of her, and as a warning to help deter others from committing similar crimes in the future. That's why her name was released to the public. What do we know so far, right? We know exactly how she committed the crime. But the bigger question here is why? Why did Yoo-Jung kill this tutor? What in her life drove her to this terrible crime? Did she hold some sort of grudge against this woman? In Korea, they actually call this murder the turesarhe, which is the murder of a same-aged peer. So the implication is she killed someone around her same age. But no, Yoo-Jung did not know the victim, not before finding her on this app. So why did she kill her? Well, it's complicated. Yoo-Jung did not have your run-of-the-mill childhood. It kind of reads like a recipe for disaster, tangled family tree, alleged abuse, you name it. So let's start at the beginning. Jung Yoo-Jung was abandoned by her mother when she was 2 years old, after her parents got divorced, and there's not a lot of information available about her parents or what happened, why they got divorced, but she was 2 years old and she was abandoned by her mother. Her father, he's got his own true crime cameos going on. He's more familiar with the inside of a prison cell than a parent-teacher conference, and when Yoo-Jung was 6 years old, he went to prison and she went to live with her grandfather and eventually was raised by her grandfather and step-grandmother. Kind of seemed like the universe was setting her up for failure. I mean, I could see someone getting some serious abandonment issues at that point. Fast forward a bit, and her adult life isn't turning out much better. So picture Yoo-Jung, she's a young adult after high school, trying to make ends meet, and she's like in the ring battling it out with her failures. Applies for university, doesn't get in. Applies for civil service exams, fails multiple times. Can't get a job, she's striking out left and right. She's knocking on the door of opportunity, and it's just locked to her. Nobody's answering, you know? Yoo-Jung's home life, total horror show. Picture a step-grandmother who is making Cinderella's stepmom look like Mother Teresa. Yoo-Jung has been asked about this alleged abuse from her step-grandmother, and she hasn't given a lot of details. In fact, very little details at all. There's no context to this abuse. One time, Yoo-Jung was asked about this abuse during an interview, and she said she doubts it'll help her case because it was ages ago, and there's no more evidence. Her relationship with her dad, he's not winning any Father of the Year awards anytime soon, especially with their conversations while he's in prison. But one of these heart-to-hearts did give us a sneak peek into the whole student-teacher murder plot. Her dad spills the beans in an interview that Yoo-Jung started calling up police to report this alleged abuse from her step-grandmother. Now, I don't know what they did about it, if she did actually call the police. It sounds like they didn't do anything about it because there's very little information about it out there. But days before the murder, she calls her dad in prison and tells him about it, tells him about the abuse, tells him that the trauma from this abuse over years and years is the reason she's a social outcast. It's the reason she can't get a job. But during that call, she also sort of threatens him. It's vague, but she says something about how if she were to do something big, he would get hurt too. She wanted to cause him pain, and she didn't say what she was going to do. Kind of seems like foreshadowing to me. Oh, and get this, she wanted an apology from her dad. Why did he owe her an apology, you might be wondering? Because he had kept his daughter a secret from his new wife when he got remarried. And you might be thinking, that's kind of rude. I'd agree with you. But apparently, according to dear old dad, when he first mentioned the intention of getting married again, Yoo-Jung threw a fit, like hysterics befitting a child throwing a tantrum. Almost can't blame him for keeping his new wife away from that, especially with what we know now. Did I also mention that the abuse allegations against her grandmother didn't start until after she found out about her dad's pending nuptials? Now, her step-grandmother did speak up at one point, but she didn't talk about the abuse that was alleged from her to Yoo-Jung. She did, however, tell a story about a time when Yoo-Jung tried to turn the house into a barbecue pit while grandma was still inside. Then there's Yoo-Jung's internet history, which is like a breadcrumb trail into her dark thoughts. After flunking out of school and these job exams, she's Googling how to off a relative. So during the investigation, they go through her phone and she's been searching parricide. If you don't know what parricide is, it's the killing of a parent. You know, you may have heard of patricide, matricide. This is the killing of a parent or a close close relative. Yoo-Jung's upbringing wasn't the only contributing factor in all of this. Socially, she's practically a ghost. She had only a few friends growing up, and even those friends said that Yoo-Jung was like wallpaper in a classroom. Not shunned, just invisible. She would rather spend her time snacking while sitting behind a curtain, hiding from everyone, than joining her classmates at a lunch table. Some of her classmates described her as a quiet friend who did not fit in well. It wasn't that they were shunning her. She wasn't an outcast because they made her one. It was like Yoo-Jung refrained from participating in any social activities. Now, her isolation only grew worse after graduation. Yoo-Jung had very little involvement in the world outside. She didn't really have any hobbies, and so when she moved into adulthood, there was nothing to take with her. She didn't participate in any kind of academic efforts after not being able to get into college, or social activities after high school. And then there's the job saga, and that's a trip. She was unemployed for 5 years after high school, and then when she finally lands an interview after like a zillion tries, Yoo-Jung shows up and she clams up. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't answer any questions. Not a single one. And then after this weird behavior during the interview, she has the audacity to call the company, cursing them out about not hiring her. On top of all of this, on top of the weird home life stuff, her failures academically, her failures to get a job, Yoo-Jung also has a burning hatred for English speakers. In her mind, her own lack of language skills is the villain in her story. It's the English language, not her, that's holding her back. It's keeping her from snagging her dream job. It's keeping her from getting into college. So this is why she was targeting English tutors. She went after women who were competent in this field where she herself was lacking. And she ended up choosing someone who had graduated from a top university. Some people during this investigation had said that maybe the whole point of this, the whole point of targeting that person specifically, taking her ID and everything, was because Yoo-Jung wanted to steal her identity. She wanted to become this woman. It's an interesting theory, but here's the kicker. All of it comes together to form a pretty bad foundation. She also has a fascination with true crime that would have any Netflix marathoner look like an amateur. She wasn't just watching true crime, she was borrowing books on crime from the library, searching up how to hide a body. Add all that up and you've got a recipe for disaster. Yoo-Jung isn't just watching crime shows or reading crime novels, she's taking notes. In her mind, she's not absorbing tragic stories or cautionary tales, she's studying the art of the perfect crime. And she was obsessed. Imagine going from binge watching true crime to starring in your own story. For Yoo-Jung, the more she immersed herself into these crime stories, the more isolated she became from reality. Her world shrank to the point where the lines between right and wrong weren't just blurred, they were obliterated. In the world according to Jung Yoo-Jung, every setback, every failure, all plot twists in her narrative. It wasn't even about fame or recognition, and maybe it was a little bit of a cry for attention. What I think it was at the real heart of it was trying to prove something to herself, to achieve some kind of twisted sense of perfection. She had all of these failures in her mind that were keeping her from achieving anything she wanted to achieve. But what if she could be perfect at something? And what if that something was murder? She was trying to commit the perfect crime. Some even speculated that Yoo-Jung might have been copying another killer, Go Yoo-Jung. Both women carved up their victims. Both women had very similar names, except for their surname. And the main difference was Go took out her ex-husband and Jung went after a stranger. And also, both were caught, but there's no confirmation that that's what she was doing anyway. So all of this seems to point to a pretty unstable girl, right? Someone who kind of lost her grip on reality somewhere along the way. But really, that's only half the story, because after her arrest, some more interesting points about Yoo-Jung came to light. It was time for the experts to step in, time to figure out what's ticking upstairs. So enter two criminal psychologists. They're tasked with getting an idea of her mental state. They come equipped with brain scans and questionnaires, and they sit Yoo-Jung down for what's probably the weirdest quiz she's ever taken, the psychopathy test, right? And at first, she's hitting just below the yikes range, you know what I mean? But they retest her. And she's scoring higher than some of the most infamous serial killers in Korea's history. Even Kang Ho-sun, who had been convicted of killing 10 women between 2005 and 2008. Now, there are some other experts that are calling BS on this test, though, saying it's too subjective and that she's not showing the hallmark traits of psychopathy, so the test is not working. Meanwhile, others still are saying the test is just too lenient. So the plot thickens. The experts are weighing in. They're saying her mixture of troubled past, craving for attention, her solo lifestyle, and this true crime obsession may have brewed a perfect cocktail of disaster. It's like every piece of her life's puzzle was just a little bit warped, a little bit twisted, and it led her down this gruesome path. One expert in criminal psychology said Yoo-Jung's psychopathic tendencies, which had accumulated during her childhood due to personal reasons and the environment, exploded and led to murder. Some other experts say Yoo-Jung was screaming for attention. Like, all she ever wanted was a gold star from all these adults who kept overlooking her and ignoring her. How does she go about getting that gold star? By taking a detour through Murder Town? It's like she went, hey, if I can't get your attention the normal way, I'll do something so wild you will not be able to ignore me. And then, of course, anytime there's a case like this, anytime there's any criminal case, there's the debate about her mental state. Some folks are quick to slap a label on it, saying it's the wiring upstairs. She even tried pulling the mental health card when it was time to face the music in court. But let's be real, not every brain quirk leads to crime scene. I mean, I don't know where you stand on the nature versus nurture debate, but personally, I'm leaning heavy on the nurture. Oh, and did I mention that before the whole tutoring app debacle, Yoo-Jung was already dipping her toe into the murder pool? Like 3 months before she tried to play teacher-student with Anna, Yoo-Jung was using another app. This one was like a second-hand trading app, and she was using that to try to reel in a different victim. She had this plan in place to meet up with a woman. She was in her 20s also, another same-age peer, on some walking trail, but too many people were there. Spoiled her party. She couldn't proceed with her plans. But she didn't stop there. She tried to lure in someone else. This one was a teenage boy using that same app, but he smelled something fishy. He was too suspicious. He was like, these messages are kind of weird, and so he ghosted her. Some people think that Yoo-Jung was just a hop, skip, and a jump away from becoming a serial killer. Like, she had the whole thing mapped out, planned meticulously for months in advance. But one expert was a little suspicious of this serial killer theory, pointing out the imbalance between the murder and the abandonment. Like, the killing part executed with pretty scary precision. The disposal of the body, not so much. They said it was like she was so intoxicated by the thrill of the kill that she couldn't focus on the aftermath. Either way, Yoo-Jung was trying to commit the perfect crime, and who knows what she would have gone on to do if she'd succeeded. Despite her meticulous planning, Yoo-Jung slipped up on the cleanup. If she hadn't, if that taxi driver, honestly, the hero of this story, if he hadn't called the police when he did, she might have kept on killing. Why did this have to happen? What drove this young girl to commit a crime? Was it a result of this childhood trauma? Was it mental health? Was it her own self-loathing in the face of failure after failure? If you ask Yoo-Jung herself, she'll tell you she killed out of curiosity. She wanted to know what it was like to try murder, like it was a hobby. The crime happened pretty recently, in mid-2023. And at the time, the cops were actually on the lookout for an accomplice. Because let's face it, Yoo-Jung, not exactly a strong kid. She's so small, she could pass as a student, like a young middle school or high school student. She was mistaken for a child by the taxi driver, presumably by her victim when she opened the door, instead of the adult that she was. So how could someone so small pull off such a heinous act? How could she murder and dismember someone without help? Well, they abandoned the search for an accomplice once it became clear that she had planned and committed the murder alone and that she admitted to it. But a lot of the details of this case just started to come out recently. A couple months ago in November was her sentencing hearing. In the meantime, she'd been sitting in the Busan detention center waiting to find out her fate. Would she become a lifer in the prison system, or was she going straight to death row? Now, most people figured she wasn't going to get the death death sentence. It's been a while since Korea has handed down a death sentence, and very rarely for a single murder. 5 months after the murder, Yoo-Jung attended her sentencing hearing, and the courtroom became the stage for a heart-wrenching plea from the family of the victim. Picture this, in the Busan District Court. The air is thick with anticipation. Everybody's holding their breaths. They want to find out what's going to happen to this killer. The prosecution presents a letter, a raw outpouring of grief from the family of the victim, calling for justice to be served in the harshest terms. Now, the victim's family did not attend the trial. They couldn't bring themselves to be there, and I don't blame them. In the letter, they shared some thoughts. The victim's mother shared the pain of celebrating a birthday without her daughter. She said her 28th birthday passed not long ago. It was a heartbreaking day for us. The father continued by saying, 5 months have already passed since the incident occurred. 5 months were like 500 years to me, and I think the times I will have to endure in the future will be very difficult. Both parents asked that Yoo-Jung be given the maximum sentence. But it wasn't just the parents. The victim's younger sister also included a statement, and she said, no amount of legal punishment will be able to wash away the pain of our family. But I would like to relieve some of the injustice of my sister, who tragically died innocently at a beautiful age. For me, this is the moment that cuts to the core. Always the reminder that all of these crimes have a human cost. It's really important that we don't forget the lives affected. It's not just about the crime or the killer or the justice or lack thereof, but it's about remembering the victim, acknowledging the pain that's left behind, and hoping for a future where stories like this are fewer and farther between. Now, Yoo-Jung practically waltzed into court with an attitude that some call remorseful and others said were kind of mocking. She did admit to the crime, but acted as though the facts of the case were just minor details. Her story changed so much over the course of the investigation and leading up to the trial. 1 minute it's, I needed a buddy for the afterlife. I'm not kidding. She said she wanted them to die together and be reincarnated together. Next, she claimed she was so drunk she doesn't remember what happened. She wasn't drinking. And then she flipped to self-defense, but there were no defensive wounds on the victim. But remember, she had already said days after being caught that she killed out of curiosity, that she wanted to try murder. She also leaned into the expert opinions concerning her mental health during the trial. But with so much flip-flopping back and forth from story to story, the judge wasn't buying any of it. Too many plot holes in her story made Yoo-Jung an unreliable narrator. And on November 24th, 2023, her sentence was decided, life in prison. Except it was appealed. They claimed the life sentence wasn't good enough and that the crime was too serious. Now, the appeal hearings are pretty recent. One of them hasn't happened yet. What we know so far includes a video of Yoo-Jung chatting with her dad at the detention center. She's there with him, visiting her. She's making plans for her next move, talking about how she has to submit a statement of remorse. She wants to submit this statement to the court, to the family, to express her sincere remorse for what she did. Except she's caught on camera telling him that she's gonna have to force her sincerity. If that's not enough, she also casually mentions that if Grandpa would have just cleaned up a little bit before the cops came to arrest her, she probably could have gotten away with it. Who knows what else might come out? So we'll find out as long as the media clues us in. But honestly, the media coverage during this case was a total mess. One day, a story runs about a bloody taxi driver and a suitcase straight out of a horror flick until the driver comes in and he's like, I didn't even touch the suitcase. In no situation did I say I got bloodied. Then there are whispers that the hospital trip when she was arrested was because she claimed she had given birth and had gotten rid of her kid because life was too tough. But no, she was never even pregnant. And speaking of our taxi driver though, our hero, the cops wanted to host a commendation ceremony in his honor, but he's not doing so well. Apparently, the driver is so shaken by this whole incident that he just wants to lay low for a while. He wants to heal from his own trauma. But he did get a private commendation and he got a monetary reward for his service. So while the victim's family will never be able to erase this tragedy from their past, I hope that they're able to gain some closure from the knowledge that their daughter's killer is receiving the maximum sentence. Now, there's still a chance that her sentence will be overturned with this appeal and she'll end up with the death sentence, though I doubt it. I don't know what's worse, being put to death or having to live with yourself for your entire life. Yoo-Jung is only 24 years old. Sounds like she has some pretty deep-seated self-loathing already. Maybe living with herself is punishment enough. In a case like this, I think it's important for us to also look within, reflect on our own shadows. This story in particular shines a light especially on true crime spaces and reminds us how important it is to separate the media we consume from our own reality. Now, it's not that I think you're gonna go and take a page from Yoo-Jung's book, but we can never be too careful. So make sure you're self-aware. Make sure you understand the media you're consuming. That's all for today's story on Jung Yoo-Jung. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll see you in the next one. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay curious. Bye-bye.